talking. Hey, we're hot on the press with Russianvids today. Hello, Russianvids. How are you?
Hello, Karen. Thanks so much for having me on again. We've been doing this for quite a while, and it's nice to be back on with you again.
Yeah, we've been sparring on these hangouts, haven't we? Well, actually, I've just been listening to you talk most of the time.
Yeah, well, you know me. Everybody knows how I am. I usually have my own solo podcast, and I tend to go on for a long time. And then when I join someone for a live stream or podcast, I tend to do the same.
Can I just explain to everybody that I went and looked up Russianvids the other day, and I'm so proud of him. 1,000. Well, you said he went up to 1,400 in the chat room.
Yeah,
Congratulations, Russianvids.
yeah. Thank you. It's just I think it's what it comes down to is I try to be concise with the information and not pull things out of thin air and just realistic about what's happening in the world.
And now you're busy, aren't you? You're talking to everybody right now because after talking to me, you're going to be talking to Greece. Did you say you're going to be going on a radio show?
Yeah, actually, it's a TV program in Greece. It's a conspiracy-based TV program, and it's called Astra TV in Volos, Greece. So I've been on Greek TV, I would say maybe 10 times approximately over the last I don't know, was the last 6 months or so. And prior to that, I was on there several times back in 2017. So we have a good type of
Rapport.
relationship working together.
Can I ask you, Russianvids? Russianvids, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, the world's gone. People say the old saying goes, the world's gone crazy. I say the world's gone stupid with this nonsense coronavirus, this phantom ghost virus that people are buying into, most of the public. And the way I look at it is this, Karen. If you're going to believe in the moon landing, you're going to believe we live in a spinning ball zipping through space. If you're going to believe the nonsense of the event that happened in Connecticut, you're going to believe in all these other events, you're going to, of course, buy this as well. And that's what the public has done. They're buying into all the lies. And they can't go where the truth is because the truth is too crazy to them.
I said a few months ago, there was a garage that closed up and a new garage took over. Yes, the stock change, which isn't happening at the moment. But it's as if we've been bought up by somebody else because we're not human beings, we're a commodity. And so they've treated us just like commodities, and it's like they've sold us or something.
Well, yeah, that's what it's been for since the beginning with the people that run this world. Of course, they have to pull off the deception like they really care for us when they really don't. And I always talk about this, Karen, where they give us the truth in movies and music and lies in the news. That Michael Jackson song from years ago, like I said so many times, these so-called artists are giving these lyrics to music.
What,
Their
in that
songs.
song, they don't really care about us? That was a good one.
You just took the words out of my mouth, Karen. You just said it, and I'm glad you did because people are getting it and knowing what's happening in this world where they're giving us that truth in the duality aspect, and that's a huge thing. And that's they're portraying people like Michael Jackson and others in Hollywood as heroes, these celebrities as heroes, but they're absolutely not. They're just puppets on a string, of course, as we know.
Yeah, I think once we start following people like you, it's a bit like you can get your book out and the time out and the date out, and then you can see it all, can't you?
Yeah, to me, it's crystal clear, And the big thing with me, Karen, is I tell this to people all the time. I'm not part of obviously of the mainstream, believe in that nonsense, and I don't join the crowd of conspiracy theorists. I have my own person. I'm not lumped with any group. I have my own mind. People. For example, people really push chemtrails as harmful and dangerous. That might be the case in some instances, but I look at it this way: we have to be realistic. People talk about coronavirus and like we know it's a phantom virus, a ghost virus, where basically no, it's not out there. There's no real outbreak. It's just an invisible enemy that does not exist. Well, we talk about how we know no one's dying from it. They have all these big names.
This Russianvids with a name like COVID-19 sounds quite military to me.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. But one thing I want to mention, I'll be concise with it, is all these so-called celebrities. You have Tom Hanks, the big one of the biggest names in Hollywood, the biggest name one of the biggest names in Hollywood, Tom Hanks. You have the actor from Game of Thrones, the James Bond girl. You have Prince Albert, Prince Charles, all these huge names supposedly contracting coronavirus. CNN's Chris Cuomo. The list goes on and on. What I'm getting at is
It's freaky,
none of us.
that, isn't it, with the list of actors and
Yeah,
high-powered people. I
yeah,
mean, a lot of people think they're being arrested, but I don't think so. I just
no,
think they're part of the game.
yeah, and we'll get to that. But I just want to be finish what I was saying is we don't know anybody that has this coronavirus personally. There's always this, oh my coworkers, uncles, next door neighbor has it. It's never anybody directly anybody knows, and people just, and this is like the latest craze, latest fad, where it's like the ice bucket challenge where we see these videos of all these hospital workers, doctors, nurses dancing around in videos. This is supposedly a deadly virus that's going around. Bodies are supposedly piled up in morgues, and people are dying in hospitals over this, and they're really just embellishing in this. What I'm getting at is we have to be realistic. Like I was saying, look at the flip side with chemtrails. Okay, people talk about the dangers of chemtrails. How many people do we know have dropped dead from chemtrails? None.
Mm.
So what
Well,
I'm
do you
getting
know
at is
what,
this.
Russianvids? I believed about the chemtrails, and then once I got into Victor Schooberger, and I realised that this compressed engine had been made a long time ago, and then this is what they're using in these aeroplanes, that all the aeroplanes were doing was making more clouds.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at, Karen. You hit the nail on the head. I'm glad you added that in. What I'm getting at is this: you have the mainstream people believe in the nonsense of the coronavirus and how it is dangerous. They're wearing their masks, their gloves, and all this nonsense. Well, they're paranoid. Now you have the conspiracy people who are videotaping chemtrails. They're paranoid about these chemtrails, of course. So we are on the side where people in the conspiracy field are saying nobody is dying from coronavirus. It's a hoax. Well, you can look at the flip side, and again, how many people do we know are dying from chemtrails? None. And here's the thing: is you have
The
very famous
hospitals are
people.
empty, and I just can't believe it, Russianvids, because we'll just pick 4 weeks ago. It was probably 8 weeks ago. You'd have been sitting in casualty waiting 4 hours for a doctor, and now there's nobody there at all. We're just hypochondriacs.
Yeah, yeah. But I want to finish my point on the chemtrails real quick. My point is, you have famous people again pushing chemtrails. Prince, he was on TV talking about the danger of chemtrail. You had Ted Gunderson, a former FBI head in the Memphis, Tennessee, Dallas, Texas, Los Angeles, California branches pushing chemtrails as dangerous. So just to really sum it up, wrap it up, as far as how both sides are deceived into believing and paranoid about things that are just literally nonsense in my mind. It doesn't mean there might be an aspect of chemtrails, or it might be like what you call a slow death. Like if you smoke for, say, 30, 40 years, it's going to catch up with you. But what I'm getting at is none of these things are killing, people. And we should remove the paranoia. We should remove the fear, because if you're living in fear, you're not living, Karen. That's what I want to explain to people on the conspiracy side too. Don't look at a cloud in the sky.
We
Don't
need
look
to
at a
go
cloud in
out
the
and
sky
have
and
our
freak
lives.
out. Yeah, don't look at a sky
Try
in the
and be.
cloud and freak out and, oh, there's another one. Just, people need to calm down on both sides. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, we need. I know this sounds a bit of a strange thing to do because they're telling you to do the opposite. Because I went up to London at the weekend and there was no one on the train, no one on another train, no one at the station. They were telling everybody, if you come to the station and you're not there for practical reasons like working or looking after people, you'll be arrested. People stayed away. You
Yeah.
need to just get on with your life if you can.
Yeah, that's a sad thing is people are locked in their houses, or they're afraid. And what's happening here is they're locked. They barricade themselves in their house out of fear. And where they're watching BBC, they're watching CNN, they're watching Fox News. More brainwashing, more fear being poured in their minds. And I'm not living like that. I've done absolutely nothing different in my life. I'm not going to be
I
controlled.
bet you, though, people like you and me, we probably spent a little bit more time in our houses anyway. We didn't, I'm not being horrible, but I'd rather be in here in my own little world than out there with them. I'm sorry. So I go out there, I'll go to Silver Hill, I'll go shopping, whatever it is, I'll go out. I went to London. but I spend a lot of time in my home, and I bet you do. So this sort of locking us in our houses isn't so bad as maybe for certain people as it is for others. But to lock families, they've taken all our rights away, haven't they?
Yeah, that's the thing is, and as far as and I agree with you as far as truth. There's we don't blend in well with society. We like to be, of course, in communication with each other. What's going on? What's the latest happenings here in the U.S.? You know, you of course in the UK, people in Australia, Brazil, wherever the case is. We like to discuss these things, discuss these topics. So we're not like maybe out and about dealing with the sheeple of this world as much. And you have 100% right on that. One thing I want to point out too, Karen, is if this coronavirus is real, they talk about social distancing. I don't know how it is in the UK, but here in the US, you go into like a local Walmart or Costco. I mean, the shopping carts, you just grab anyone that's used, that's in the shopping cart bin, or just, straggling along on the side in the parking lot. You go inside, there's hundreds and hundreds of shoppers, there's employees, like maybe 1% or less than 1% are wearing gloves or or surgical mask. People are touching the produce. People are touching, like, there's bananas, pineapple, watermelon. Everybody's touching it. There's no gloves. People are opening up freezer and fridge doors with no hand protection. So what I'm getting at is, if this is legit, they would not allow this. Everybody,
Yeah, they're touching the oranges, the apples, the fruit, the veg, the packets. I want this. I don't want this. Put it back.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. So what I'm getting at, Karen, is if this is legit, they would not allow that. So they're really enforcing social distancing, keeping was it 2 meters away, 6 feet away, but people can come into contact, and there's absolutely no social distancing in these stores, these Walmart stores. So even though, like I said, the employees, they're not doing anything different. So it's just it's like a how can I say? It's like a drill. It's like a live drill gone real in this world with this fake phony phantom virus that people are buying. And as someone that's awake to all this, I look around and I see all this nonsense happening and all these new. This is what I'm getting at. What's going to happen after this goes away? They can't carry on this scam forever. They can't carry on this farce forever. So what's going to happen after this? The passing of new laws, of course, pushing of vaccines, restricting travel of people, not only internationally, maybe domestically as well, wherever you're located, until you get vaccinated. So that's the major concern.
Yeah, so everybody I speak to doesn't want the injection, which then means we won't be able to travel.
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing. Like in the United States, certain states, like in Florida, you can't even enter unless you are a resident. You have to, if you're a commercial truck driver, you can enter Florida, or if you're a resident. But if you're a non-resident, you don't have a state ID, Florida, they'll turn you away. They'll turn you away. But here's the funny thing is, if you fly into the state, they allow you. So if you take a plane into Florida, it's not a problem. So that doesn't make sense. That's what I'm getting at. None of this stuff makes sense. This is how you can.
It's so hard, isn't it, Russianvids? Because if you wanted to sit here and talk about it, we could start at A and go to Z, and we could be here for hours just trying to explain it to people. You can't do this in 5 minutes. It's layer upon layer, and that's how you get this big cake in front of you.
Well, that's the whole thing, is to explain it to someone. It's that you can't do it, like you said, in 5 minutes, Karen. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot of examples. For example, you have Donald Trump's so-called coronavirus team, and this one man named Anthony Fauci, who's he's on there all the time with Donald Trump near the podium. He's giggling, smiling, covering his laughter in the background while this is all going on. At the end of one press conference with Donald Trump, I have a video clip of him patting this military man in the back. He's wearing army fatigues, and while they're leaving, with both hands, he's patting him on the back. He's giving like a little back rub, back massage, and like they're like mocking the masses. Like they're talking about social distancing while he's physically touching a man on the back while they're leaving this press conference, and that's just plain mockery.
The president can do that. But you know what? I did one, right, and it was with Putin. And what it was is Putin was glitching massive. Trump was glitching a little bit, but there was an entourage of their bodyguards on the right. All of them, you could see through them. So none of them were there. They'd been put in afterwards. No one noticed that that had happened to the video, that it wasn't real.
Yeah, I didn't see that part of it, but you never. They love to play, like to fool the masses, and people that think what you're saying, Karen, is nonsense. They need to know their history. Go back when Obama was so-called president. They had Obama appear in front of the podium. It was a hologram. It was nothing but I shouldn't say maybe a hologram. It was a CGI. It was just basically not even him. It was just him, his voice, but literally it wasn't him, the person, the human being. It was like they love to play with the masses with these things, and we might throw some people off talking about this stuff, but seeing is believing. You know, if people say, "Oh, that's absolutely insane, absolutely crazy,"
Yeah,
look at the
Russian
footage.
vids. And once you see it, you cannot go back and pretend you didn't. And it doesn't mean everybody sees it. And some people go, "What the hell are you on about?" But those do see it. People do see it. We see it.
Yeah, and like I said, this is what they're doing. They make this world crazier than people could ever imagine. Where the people that are dead asleep, they can't go here because it's absolutely insane. And it's they rather call us insane. They don't want to admit it's an insane world because it'll just turn their world upside down. They don't want to believe it. They want to just carry on with their lives. And they love being the slave. They love being
Hey,
that
Russian vids, what do
yeah.
you make? I found this post. It was NASA, and NASA were getting into cognitive engineering, and they actually wanted to take over the Earth. They said they wanted to be doing local government, the mail, flights, the whole lot. They wanted to take over all of it. I'm wondering whether it's NASA that's taking over right now. With
Yeah,
$57 million a day for 20, 30 years, they could run the countries with that money, let alone the birth certificate money and everything else.
yeah, you know that's the whole thing is order to chaos through all these through the mass deception, through the controlled media. You know they're going to take advantage of these fake phony crises, implement new laws, and people are like so scared. They're just trying to survive that they're going to just cave into any demand.
And
And
what do you make of this Russian vid? You know what? If you look at America as a corporation, right? And
yeah,
what it is they've got a businessman running it now. If you believe in Trump, he's a businessman. He's a mega businessman. Now he's running a corporation. So we already know that the businesses run everything, and they've got a businessman at the top.
yeah, and only he's not only a businessman, he's an actor. And anybody that believes that Donald Trump is not controlled, they're dead asleep in my mind. This is the head puppet. This is the number one control puppet of the world. And I can't believe there's actually people buying that Trump is some type of hero. I can't believe people believe in that Q garbage, which is absolute nonsense. People are always looking for heroes when there aren't any that are propped up in this world. And
I never got into Q myself, but some people do, and some people still hope that Trump is a good man. But
well,
I
they're
myself,
deluded. They're deceived. Um, no, there isn't. From JFK, another fake phony hero. They're going to
yeah,
just play the role.
this
They're just
stuff
going to
they're
play the
doing,
role.
the deep fake and all those kind of stuff, they've been doing it for many years to us. We just didn't notice it when we were little.
Well, to me, the biggest fake phony was JFK. People really want to run to him as
I
you know.
agree with you. I agree with you. Now I've slowed the footage down, and actually, when he's just before he's shot, he almost goes, "I'm looking at you." He puts his hands up and he does things when you slow the footage down. Like how you can't see that at normal speed, but when you slow it down, you can see him going. He's pointing and he's putting his fingers up and he's doing things.
Well, the
You
thing
see
is
it.
this: it's going to sound absolutely insane to a lot of people. What you're seeing with Jackie Kennedy, she is, you know, because like I said in my video presentations, if people watch the splice down going down Elm Street. There's a splice in the footage. There's a point where, of course, there's a real JFK in the motorcade, but later on there's a splice, and literally Jackie's holding this dummy, this mannequin, JFK, and maneuvering him around. And there's all these theories. Was it Lee Harvey Oswald? Was it the policeman on the grassy knoll?
He was just another actor, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was another actor. What I'm getting at is what people really need to understand. It was a third degree Freemason that recorded this all. And there's the splice, and there's also layering of footage a big thing, Karen.
I know what you mean, Russianvids, because I slowed it down. You can actually see another man's head there. It's in front of the other man's head.
Yeah, and well, what's actually happening, if I have stills, you can literally see the dummy has a toupee. The face is completely white. There's a band around the face, and there's like a toupee behind it. So literally, it was a mannequin dummy that, heads don't explode like that. When people get shot in the head, the explosion doesn't go upwards. I mean, how can, if someone's shot, it's either going to go behind them or the explosion will go to the side. It doesn't go straight up. So unless they're shot from underneath. And that's where people are making the nonsense theory that, it was Jackie with the gun.
They did make Jackie, didn't they? I remember watching it. It just seemed like it was a certain lady, nobody in particular. She just made a video. And from her video, loads of people have made other videos showing it's Jackie Kennedy. I mean, when you look at it, you think there's some weird stuff going on in there.
Yeah, no,
but
I'm going to explain that, Karen. What's happening is Jackie Kennedy is maneuvering the body around because it's literally a dummy. She's holding and moving the mannequin around. That's why people believe it's actually Jackie. But no, they're just maneuvering around. And here's the funny thing is they give us the truth in, like I said, in music and movies, lies in the news. They actually have a song. It's by Ecstasy. It's called, watch the music video. It's called Peter Pumpkinhead. And that's what JFK was. He was a pumpkin head. It's literally a pumpkin head that exploded.
How did you sit there? If a shot came in, it was very close to her.
Yeah, but like I said, she at that point with the manipulation, basically, she's just maneuvering around this dummy. You can't. The dummy's just going to collapse and go to the side. So she has to hold the dummy so it stays seated properly.
You mean the extra effects have gone in afterwards? Like the explosion and and it's whatever you see in that. Because it's totally manipulated, that bit of footage, when you slow it down.
Well, when you look at Jackie, she's kind of looking down when the explosion goes off because she doesn't want any of that effect, of course, gonna hit her in the face. So she's like kind of looking down, and it's going straight up so it doesn't get her. Another huge thing, Karen, I need to point out is people need to understand this. When you look at the shadows of the motorcade when it first approaches on Elm Street, look at the shadows of the people standing on the street. Now, literally a few seconds later, as you see JFK and the people in the background with the grassy area, the shadows are pointing in a different direction. So literally it's a different time frame. It's not the same time.
Yeah.
It's all cropped and chopped, and it's just a bunch of nonsense. And here's a big thing, too. Where's the security in the grassy area? There's zero police. There's zero security in that grassy area. A bunch of civilians, and none of them are being held back. I mean, what if there's a crazy man there? You definitely have some kind of
protection. I heard, Russianvids, I heard that they didn't really want to police him because they weren't for him. They were for the other person that was trying to be president. So although they did look after him, they were in the car behind, but they weren't. They kept their distance a little bit. But the guy behind, he had his gun out, and they stopped the car suddenly, and he's shot by accident. And he was the first one. And they covered it up by making it look like it was something else, when actually it was the car behind. You didn't really want to look after him, but his gun was out, and the car stopped, and the gun went off, and it shot the president. I mean, I know that's wacky, but that's one of the stories I watched. I mean, it is quite amazing, the amount of stories.
Well, it's just simple to me. Was it again Lee Harvey Oswald? Was it the cop on the grass? Was it this man? Behind, was it Jackie? When it's none of the above, just like the Connecticut story. Was it the Adam character? Was it the man in the forest? When it's none of the above, it's literally the world's a stage, and people can't go where the truth is. And here's a big thing too.
People have a problem with the car as well, because what they must have done was he was in one car when it happened, and then whenever they did the replay, they always put a different car in there, and that's the car that people remember. So they don't remember the car of the day; they remember the car of the staged one.
Yeah, here's another thing too. People don't talk about. I have a photo of Jackie the same day wearing the same outfit, holding red roses, and then in the car itself, suppose with her, everybody's gone, and they're yellow roses in the car. So things are not adding up. It's like they're just playing with us in many, many ways, like little Easter eggs in plain sight. But one thing too, what's never really mentioned, talked about with the whole JFK thing is Lee Harvey Oswald, after he's supposedly shot by Jack Ruby, is literally the ambulance arrives within less than a minute. I mean, it's like they're on, they're waiting for, it's part of the script. So
And
literally,
next cue, next scene.
yes, that's exactly it. So, and of course we all know this is huge. What people don't really talk about much is all the connections with JFK and Abraham Lincoln. All the connections where they're both shot in public. They both, was it the everything matched up? Where, for example, I believe it was Abraham Lincoln was elected for Congress in 1862, and it was 1962. Whatever the case, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but all these connections they correlate with each other. And I might be off with the numbers here, but what I'm getting at, there's a lot of connections. And what I'm getting at is this: not only was JFK fake, Abraham Lincoln was faked as well. It's just another.
Yeah.
There's nothing new they're doing. It's just part of the world stage. And here's a big thing, and it's just like what happened in Tasmania, Australia, with the Martin Bryant, with the with that event in Tasmania, Port Arthur, that's so-called Port Arthur massacre. Well, here's the funny thing: they had a Port Arthur massacre in China. Several was a few hundred years, or I don't know exact time frame, but they had a Port Arthur massacre in China. They had a Port Arthur massacre in Australia. So they like to repeat history. People say, well, why does history repeat itself? It's because those that run this world, they love to repeat history.
Also, to add to that, Russianvids, right? In America, the Americans think the UK run everything, and in England, we think you run everything. It's how they place the stories through the countries. I mean, I have lots of American friends, but I don't go there. I have been there. I don't go there very often. So we're not seeing what's really on your news unless you scour the internet. And one other thing, it sort of started with Napoleonic times. It seemed that after the people got invited there, were going to be given land and rah-de-rah in the story. They get to America and they get put into quarantine, and they took the children and they became the orphan train children. They did it to us in the Second World War. They did it by sending children to Australia. They did it, I'm sorry, Hitler was the same thing. He was quarantining the adults and taking the children. And that right now is on the paperwork that people are now reading. If they think your child has got it, they can have ward of that child and take the child away. So they're doing it again now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a great point, Karen. They're repeating history once again. And, it's what's frustrating to us as people that have been at this for very long, truth speakers, is the public are under a complete trance, and the trance they're using is fear. Fear is a good way to manipulate the mind, and when you're in panic mode, you're not thinking properly, and that's the public. They're always in a state of fear, and as truthers, we shouldn't be in fear either. We shouldn't be scared of anything. The only thing we should be concerned about is the vaccines. Definitely reject the vaccines. Don't worry about like I said, don't worry about the so-called virus. Worry about the laws that are going to be passed after this nonsense kind of goes away. But here's the thing is, Karen, just like after 9/11, the world changed. When this goes away, the world's going to change as well, because they're really going to push. Look, this is a horrible situation we went through. A lot of self-quarantine from this virus. We don't want this to happen again. So we need vaccination. So this doesn't ever happen again to our society. We don't want this to happen. They might even implement things like, oh, we're going to need to close down public theaters. We're going to make new laws. We're going to,
yes, Russianvids, in a state of emergency, they can do what they like.
Well, here's the thing is, I think this, as ridiculous as it might sound,
we've got no rights at all. We're just commodities.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is, Karen, is they might even instill social distancing just to make sure there's no spread. So they might pass new laws where we all need to keep a certain distance. And the big thing is this, not to be graphic, but it's like the HIV scam back in 1991 with Magic Johnson. They used celebrities, like they using celebrities now for coronavirus. Well, they use celebrities with the HIV scam. And what they don't want is men and women having intercourse. They want to keep the population down. So the fear of, oh, if you're a man and woman, you meet together at a social gathering, or a bar, or a party, whatever. I don't want to do anything with that individual because I don't want to get HIV or AIDS. And we all know it's not from the so-called HIV or AIDS that kills you. It's so-called complications from HIV. So you die from cancer, you die from this. It's never from the actual HIV or AIDS. So what I'm getting at is they want that's social distancing. They don't want men and women to procreate. They're putting this fear in so people don't make babies. That's the same thing with what's happening now with the coronavirus. Now, men and women, say for example, they're dating. They're afraid to get in bed with each other because that other individual might have coronavirus. So it's definitely what I'm getting is there's definitely many tiers to this. New laws being passed, keeping the population down, making people paranoid. I don't want to have sexual intercourse with this individual. They might have coronavirus. So it's definitely many levels of manipulation to keep people distancing from each other. And again, it goes back from...
It's horrible, Russianvids. You put on the news and these key words come up and they're going for it. You can see the way that they've manipulated the words in a pattern. And it's always like a fist going down and a fist going. Every Thursday now, they stand outside clapping. I opened my window the other night and I shouted out, "You should have been doing this every week of the year, not just now," to the national health workers. There's a load of rubbish. And then my daughter comes running up, "Mom, what are you doing?" I couldn't help it because we know they're not clapping for the right reason still. But
I'll get back to that, but I just want to mention, like I said, the use of celebrities when it came to HIV and AIDS. They had the whole thing for Africa, Save Africa. What was that whole thing? Live Aid tour for Africa. They used all these celebrities, that music video. They had every famous celebrity.
Yes, because I realised doing some footage myself about Bob Geldof and In Excess and that Bob Geldof had all these businesses, and I thought, oh, he's one of them as well.
Yeah, that's what I try to tell people. Like, unfortunately, I have friends involved with Truth, like my good friend PK Truth. It takes time, I've been at this for a very long time, and PK jumped aboard a little bit later on. He believed like people like John Lennon were heroes. He believed David Icke is legit. And so it takes time for people to get to where the real truth is. Like, for example, I tell my friend PK, I'm like, "You're good at spotting fakery with the Boston event." But I said, "PK, you need to look deeper. These, you have to understand the whole, to really be a really good truther, Karen, and everybody listening in. You have to be well-rounded. You have to cover all aspects, not only these fabricated events we see in Boston and Connecticut. You got to understand Hollywood. You got to understand the numerology aspect, the occult side. You have to be a well-rounded truther to see the big picture." So, yeah, what I'm getting at is
you don't trust many people, Russianvids.
Yeah, well, it's not about, you say the word trust. It's more, it's more or less, we have to have our own mind, and don't look at someone like I said, my friend PK. He's looking at John Lennon as a hero. I'm explaining to him. I said, "PK, you have to understand, no one makes it big in this world unless they're part of that club." So again, they're gonna make these false heroes with John Lennon, Donald Trump, Nelson Mandela, all these people, David Icke, all these big names are supposed to be on our side. And here's a big thing too. A big aspect. I'm glad I mentioned David Icke actually, because he's actually had an interview. I believe it goes on for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, talking about coronavirus being a hoax. Here's the big thing, Karen, is they know there's people like Russianvids, Karen. There's David Weiss. There's others talking about this being a hoax. They don't want to leave it, this truth movement, this movement of it being a hoax, to us. They want to overtake it with their own puppet. So what I'm getting at is they want to control the mainstream nonsense. They want to control the alternative conspiracy aspect as well. So they want to have a leader on both sides, and they don't want to leave it to Russianvids calling it for what it is, a real fake, calling it for what it really is, a fake plandemic, not a pandemic, a plandemic. So they're going to have their puppets on both sides of the fence type of thing. They don't want us to have an organic movement with this truth of coronavirus being a hoax.
Do you remember what I said to you, Russianvids? I mean, watching some of your stuff, you do get quite into certain people, and you say things, and I was like, I agree with you, but whoa, you stripped them to pieces. But then when I started looking at that Watts case and looking at the footage of the media, I realised that you were telling the truth.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is,
Well, I
I'm
mean,
like,
it's by accident. I found it my way, but when I saw it, I realised that all the things you've been saying, they were the truth.
yeah, that's the thing is, and unfortunately, what happens is this: a lot of people like the things I said, like say 7, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it is in the past. People call me crazy, like saying, calling Russianvids an auto hoaxer. I'm the original auto hoaxer. People say, oh, like there was a back years ago, there was this group called the Truth Roundtable. You know, it's guys like David Wise, PK, Red Pill Revolution, Jeff C. All these characters in Truth. I was never part of that. They never invited me because they would always push off events as either it was done by the government or it was done by a crazy man. When Russianvids said, no, this is a hoax, they were like, oh, Russianvids thinks everything is fake. He thinks he has no credibility because he thinks all these events are hoaxes. He doesn't think anything real happens in this world. I said, no, real things happen in this world, but if it's Spotlight TV, it's a staged hoax. And that's all they do with these events. So I was pushed aside. But what happened was, and this is many years ago. What happened was in 2014, one of the individuals, as we know as PK Truth, he saw me call this event in Taiwan, this Taiwanese so-called plane crash. I called it a hoax, like all these major events. He saw my video presentation on it. He agreed. After that, there's a major falling out with that group. And then people started saying what I was saying, what I'm getting at. People started saying, hey, they're hoaxing all these events. And what I'm getting is, I didn't care if it was popular or not. If I see something for what it is, I'm going to call it what it is. So there's a good amount of people that are like, for example, I would do podcasts years ago, and I would with David Weiss and PK Truth, and I would mention the 33 in Freemasonry. They would not want me to talk about that before we went live. They said, oh, Russianvids, don't mention the number 33. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a number. It's just nonsense. And I said, no, you guys don't understand. You guys are very limited in your knowledge on the occult. You don't understand. This is very important with Freemasonry. They say, oh, it doesn't mean anything, whatever. So I would go on the shows I would talk about anyways, because I knew this was the truth. Now what I'm getting at is they both talk about it. They both talk about the 33 in video presentation. So what I'm getting at is, don't be afraid. If you see something for what it is, Karen, don't be afraid to speak your mind. If you know for a fact you're on target, you can connect these pieces together, you're not pulling it out of thin air, don't be afraid to speak your mind. And one thing about me is I've never been part of any group, like I said, because I'm my own person. When we group ourselves together.
Yeah. I got to it a different way, and I understand what you mean, because I can only explain it my way and you explain it your way. I can't be you. You're the master. But I just couldn't understand how bad it was. I was looking at like Elvis Presley. I was looking at Nancy Pileski with numbers on her chest. Like it's just across the board.
Yeah,
It didn't matter where I went. And of course, I talked to Cam B. I don't know if you know him. He's doing Sports Stars. And I talked to, oh my goodness, what's his name? Oh no, what's his name? Another person. And he's doing celebrities and all the actors playing the royal families and all this kind of stuff. I can't think of his name right now.
Happens to me, Karen. No worries. It happens to me all the time. I'm really bad with names, so no worries on that
I mirror his stuff and put it on my channel, and he's happy that I do it. But he's
well, here's the thing I wanted to say.
Sparky Lee. Yeah, Sparky Lee. So he's doing actors, the royal family. I've got Canby doing the sports stars. I've got me doing the news. And we can all see the same thing going on.
Yeah, and the thing is this, Karen, I'm going to be very honest, and people might be a little upset what I'm going to say here, but I never been afraid of people getting mad at me, because people are always mad at me anyways, most people anyways. The thing is this, we cannot be, we could be a group, but we have to remain individuals. I don't like the aspect of groupthink. That's falling into the same category of the people that are basically Muppets. They watch the news, they think they're smart, they think they're intelligent, they think they're witty by watching the news and repeating that information they absorb from that previous night's news. That doesn't make them smart. That doesn't make them intelligent. It makes them Muppets. They're just repeating. They don't have the tools to sit down and break things down, look at the events, look online, look at the fakery. They don't have the necessary tools to do that. They've never done that. So when you tell them anything that goes against what they've been told, the reason they get so upset is because they think just listening to someone on TV tell them something, that's research in their mind. Repeating is research. That's not research. That's just being, like I said, a parrot, a muppet. So we, as truthers, we should also just like toe the line of like, for example, any kind of so-called conspiracy. We should have our own minds. Again, I don't have a problem with people being group truthers, but everybody should have definitely their own mind, and we should always remember we should stick to things we can prove and not just pull things out of thin air. And that's my success with my channel over the years. I really have to, when I do my video presentations, I prove what I say. Because if you can't prove what you say, to me, it's hot air. That's the major thing. I'm always showing visual evidence to back up my claims.
I know Russianvids because I've spent many, many hours doing mine. So I can only imagine the hours that you spent doing your presentations. And I mean, that hangout, you had 1,004. One of those hangouts went on for hours. You did the other day.
Yeah, last night.
Yeah, 6 hours, wasn't it? Can I ask you two things?
Sure.
Two things that have really upset me about what they're doing to us is
Uh-huh.
they managed to disarm the whole world in less than a week or in a few days. And what it is they're always portraying on these programs, Crime Watch, this, whatever it is, that we're a mass of people that are constantly slaughtering each other, shoot, whatever it is. But actually, we're not. We're a really peaceful set of people. So that was one thing. And the other thing is, are you happy and excited right now for what's happening?
Well, there's nothing happening, and nothing to be happy or excited about what's happening.
I don't mean the pain and the grief, but I just mean the place we've got. Could we go into, it looks really bad at the moment, but could we get to freedom, or do you just think no? It's just like it's like communism, isn't it? It's like communism.
I look at it this way, Karen. I look at it this way. The masses of people that are dead asleep, the 95% of the world, they're gonna when the vaccine's introduced for this fake phony virus, they're gonna be stampeding like wild animals in line to get the vaccine. There's gonna be 5% that are gonna refuse it, and those 5%, for example, if they want to do a forced vaccination, they're gonna ease. It's only 5% of us. It's not gonna be so difficult. But here's the thing: is I want to explain to people these people that run this world. There are just very few of them. There's so many of us. They know if the people of this world took back the power, they went against these so-called rulers, we squash them like grapes. It would be like an elephant versus a mosquito. They wouldn't stand a chance. But the problem is, through manipulation, these magicians of this world, it's like I would make the analogy, it's like being at the zoo where you have a small human being controlling multiple elephants, and through intimidation.
There is one good thing I heard Russianvids on that, whether it's true or not, because they're all stories, but local marshals are beginning to say we cannot enforce this. If that starts breaking down, the army starts coming onto the people's side, that would be a good thing, wouldn't it?
Well, I would look at it this way. You see all these videos. You're talking about the military and all, for example, the tanks. What is a tank going to do against a virus? What's the point of the tank with a virus? Has nothing to do with it. Yes. What's the tank going to shoot a missile at an invisible virus? I don't understand this. And also, too, in San Francisco, where I'm from, I put a video up where it's from RT News. There's no commentary, but they're boarding up all these businesses in San Francisco. Why are they boarding up? I mean, there's supposedly this invisible virus going on. These businesses are closed. They have they're shuttered down, but now they're adding plywood, reinforcing all these windows and businesses like they're expecting something major. Like, I believe they're going to implement a new law and people are going to take to the streets and riot. And that's what's going to happen eventually. It's going to be order to chaos. And they're going to try to pluck at the people such as you and me, Karen, that refuse the vaccinations. But literally, I might be a little bit much, but they're not going to force vaccinate me. It's not going to happen.
Can I say something?
I'd rather die. Listen, I'd rather die, Karen, than have them.
I agree with you. I don't want it either. But you know that RT News, first of all, I looked at that, and they were the ones that always had the slightly different news. But then through this case where this woman, this news reporter, supposedly went against CNN and that, I was watching it, and it was the same thing, like with the deep fake. They get you in for deep fake, and at the end of it, they tell you you're going to war. So with her, she's siding, and then she's going against, and then it was a bit like, well, she said good things about them, and now she's inciting that actually it's the rest of the Middle East we should be going to war with, basically. And I wasn't sure what the message was for this woman that I held quite dearly. I thought, look, she stood up, but she didn't. She was just another actress.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that station are one of the worst ones for giving us lies.
Well, they all are. Here's the thing is too, even with all that what they're doing in San Francisco, it could be literally for show too, just to put more fear into conspiracy people. But that's a lot of effort to put in fear, to put up all this plywood. I'm not going to be controlled by fear, like I said, but I'm not going to be part of any type of any of these events. Taking part in the riots in the street and all that stuff, because you're playing to their hands. I tell people, do not comply to their nonsense. Do not believe what they're telling you, and they're going to go away. It's like a troll in a chat box. If you give them attention, you empowering that person. And what I'm getting at, if the people like live their lives, didn't pay attention to the nonsense the government's doing, they're not going to have the full effect. And here's the thing too. For example, here's a quick thing I want to mention. You talk about like tissue paper that you cannot find in any of your local stores. For a fact, they're holding it back, because if all the supplies were delivered, that it wouldn't really demonstrate, or wouldn't really emphasize the situation that we're in a bad predicament now. So for example, you show up at your local grocery store or Walmart, and there's no tissue paper in the aisles. Why is it stocked? There's no more trees. There's no more plastic. There's no more of this. They're definitely holding it back to really plant a seed. There's a panic. There's a pandemic. Look, there's no more tissue paper. But this is part of it.
Not just that, Russianvids. Do you know what else they were doing with that? It doesn't matter what object they use now. They can turn it. All they do is they don't lie, but they lie, because they turn around and they say, so what people see in the future is, oh, look, in this Third World War, whatever they want to call it by then, they're queuing for food. But we were queuing for an item that they'd taken off the shelves. But they're lying, but they're not lying, and they're lying all in one. But the history then gets changed.
Definitely. They're manipulating everything. And the big thing is this. They don't have, 80% control, 90% control. They want 100% control. And the way you do that is you gotta put fear in people, like a child. You want to control a child, you put fear in them. You give them restrictions. You spank them. You do what you need to do to manipulate them to do what you want them to do. And that's what this government's doing. These governments around the world are doing. And I really have to emphasize.
Can I say something else, Russianvids? I think it's like, we all know that the TV is subversion, right? But I think they're doing something on there, because people are getting fixated to the news. They can't turn it off. They're watching every bit of news. There's got to be something else. You need to turn the news off. Maybe watch it once a day if you want to catch up on the news. It ain't going to change that much.
Well, look at this way, Karen. This is my best analogy. There's two realities to this world. There's a reality, the so-called reality of TV news and what's happening in the news, and there's a panic. There's viruses. All these events. I'm gonna be careful what I say. The event in Connecticut, Boston, London. All these events that are portrayed in TV. If you remove all these events that were made to happen, that were planned to happen, we're living in a much different world. A very different world. Remove all these fabricated events throughout recent history specifically. There's been others in the past, of course, but we are living in a completely different world where we're not so reliant on the governments. We don't need them. This makes them that obviously makes everybody run to the government for help. Oh, protect us from all these people that are doing these horrible things. When people don't know, of course, they're the ones behind it all. So it gives the illusion of we need to run to the government for help and protection against the crazies of this world.
Always giving you the illusion that you think that you're in control or you've got a choice, but you haven't. You're always being funneled into what they want.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. That's the one reality. The other reality is We know we're being lied to on a grand scale. We don't know. We can't predict what's going to happen next. We don't know what they're going to do next, but we know they're behind everything. And I try to really emphasize, people, stop being paranoid on the conspiracy side. Stop trying to predict exactly what's going to happen. It's okay to say, look, I believe this might happen, but I really dislike when people like, on 6/14, Seattle's going to be attacked. And I know it is. And like, this is putting more fear into people. And anyways, these events are hoaxed events anyways. So stop trying to petrify people with fear. And so this is why I'm my own individual. I don't like the groupthink when people are really in the conspiracy side, adding to the fear, adding to the hysteria. And that's what it comes down to. One thing, Karen, I want to mention, and we really need to discuss this. This is a very important aspect, is where this all leading to. We know they're fabricating our past, they're fabricating our present, and they're obviously going to fabricate our future. So what we should round this about is to conclude this podcast is, where's it all leading? What about, for example, the elections in the U.S. here? Are they going to have public voting? Are they going to do it online? Are they going to stop? Like, here's the thing is, like, we don't see any type of, I have to be careful with the words. You might have to edit this out. We don't see any mass shootings. We don't see any terrorist attacks taking place during this so-called pandemic, because they want to focus on this. What's going to happen when elections come about?
You know what's really weird, Russianvids, just to add to your bit there without, sorry, cutting
Sure,
in there.
go ahead.
When I was looking at all the footage, and I was looking at the deep fake, on everything it said for the upcoming elections. But at that point, we were looking at nearly a year ahead. When we go into an emergency, Trump could stay there now, or anything could happen, because we're in an emergency, so they can just even do more what they want.
100%. And that's what I'm getting at. I don't think they want to run parallel this pandemic and voting at the same time. It's going to be too much for the public. So I think, and I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a magician where I can foretell the future, but I just don't see, and I could be wrong, I don't foresee them having a full-blown fake pandemic going on during election time. It's going to be a big distraction. So when they're having the debates, they're having all the quarrels on the world stage, it doesn't make sense for me to have this pandemic going on at the same time.
Do you think that this is
they can carry this on all the way to next year. We don't know. They can carry this on to 2021. We don't know. But I just look at it as, they want this to go on through summer. They want to reward themselves. They'll say, look what a great job we did. We made everybody quarantine themselves. We controlled the virus. Now here's the elections. We're going to pass new laws, this, and this. This is a possible scenario. I don't want people to play this on later and say, oh, Russianvids said this, and this. I'm just saying this is a potential scenario that could take place. We have no idea. But we're trying to figure out their plan, because we know everything that's happening now is going to lead to what they're going to implement. And so before this planned event, this pandemic went into play, they already have the end results before it went public. So it's like a movie. Before the movie's released, they know how it's going to end before the public even sees the start.
Russianvids, can I just say that I was put a bit of Boris on one of my videos last night. It wasn't filmed yesterday. I couldn't tell you if it was 2 weeks ago or 6 months ago. But basically, he's in the shop, and it's like a Turkish shop or something. It's nothing. And then he gets on that bike. That bike, the wheel, it was bent. That front wheel of that bike was, what do you call it? It was wobbled.
Yeah, maybe too much weight from Boris. And
what I'm saying is, it was obviously staged, but he got on a bike with a crooked wheel. Like, oh my goodness.
Leading us off course on stability. And here's the thing is, I'm not sure of the date of that taping, but he's all no social distancing. Everybody's super close. He has his plastic bag. Yeah, none of it made sense. What the hell's up with that? There's no social distancing there. What's up with that?
And he looks a bit strange with that hat on his head as well.
Yeah, he looked like a real goofball. And definitely, he's the UK version of Donald Trump, or Donald Trump's UK
Prime
version.
Minister rode off on a 1940s bike with a bent wheel.
Yeah, and this is the thing is, we have to remember, all these politicians, all these people on the world stage, they're just actors. Just like astronauts are actors, these politicians are actors. All
Why
of
did
them.
they do it though, Russianvids? Because when you listen to Boris in that, he says it's going to get much better. You watch, it's going to get much better. So they led us all the way over to this materialistic world just to chop it out from underneath our legs.
Yeah, definitely a clown show that's happening. Definitely a clown show and a complete.
Right
It's
now, nothing means what it meant 6 months ago.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, people live their lives. This is what I really want to wrap it up. I need to get going, Karen.
Yeah, you're a busy man, aren't you? And anyway, you've woken up on this podcast because when we first joined you, both of us were quite tired. We both had late
Yeah,
nights and our voices were a bit croaky. And now you're in the rev now.
yeah.
Carry on.
I got an interview with Greek TV in a half an hour, so I need to get prepared for that.
Yeah.
And I need to get video footage together and images together. And you could just edit this part out here when you release this. I don't want this part of the live stream or part of the premiere. But yeah, getting back to your saying, Karen, with all these events, they have the world in a complete trance from birth to death, fearing things that are not even real. And I really want to emphasize this to people. I just turned 46 years old. Never been in the hospital in my life since birth. There's a creator, there's a God. And the big proof to me is all these fruits, vegetables, seeds, and nuts are perfectly put into play to supplement us. I've used these. If people believe in the Bible or not, it says in the Bible that the Creator God gave us everything that comes from the ground to sustain us. And do not abhor them. Do not avoid these. These things are made for us. The vitamin C, the vitamin E, the vitamin K, everything is perfectly there. This is not by chance or by coincidence. We're not a cosmic accident. We didn't come from monkeys. Why there's still monkeys if we came from monkeys? But to round it all up, if we're a cosmic accident, we came from nothing. We're just just here randomly. We're gonna need vaccines. We're gonna need medicines. I don't touch medicines. I don't touch vaccines at all. I just drink my nice herb.
It's best not to go to the doctors at all. But that's my point with the hospitals being empty. They're empty because the hypochondriacs aren't there anymore. I'm not saying there aren't ill people or people may not die from complications, but I'm just saying, where's all the people that would have been going? I just don't think they want the test.
Well, the big thing is with me is this, Karen, and I'm gonna say this bluntly, and it might hurt people's feelings, but it's the truth. We're truthers. What are we doing as truthers? Smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, eating foods with high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, MSG, all this garbage. What are we doing to ourselves? Poisoning ourselves with the people that run this world, eating their products that they're creating. Get back to eating natural. Get back to drinking those herbal teas from leaves that the Creator created for us. Everything is there that we need. If people just get back to the basics, everything in this world is very simple. Here's a big thing I'll throw at you, Karen. This is the problem with people. They don't think they're smart enough. They see people on TV that use very sophisticated language. They seem so intelligent and articulate, and it's to the point where people can't understand them, and they believe them. Like, for example, when it comes to science or NASA or any of this nonsense, people sit back and say, well, that person, I'm not exactly sure what they're saying, but they sound very intelligent. I'm just going to go along with what they say. They're on TV. They must know what they're talking about. They must be telling the truth. They sound very intelligent, so they fall for those lies. Just like I told you before about Dr. Oz and how he's pushing vaccinations to millions upon millions of his followers.
Yes, I put that one out on Unscrambled.
It's his own wife and children don't get vaccinated, and people don't see this. So they're literally telling us, it's not by accident, they're telling us these vaccines aren't safe. My own wife, I can't convince her, but I convince a total stranger in you to get vaccinated, but my wife won't get vaccinated. So what I'm getting at is nothing's hidden in this world. They're literally telling us these aren't safe. And if you don't take Dr. Oz's warning, my wife and children don't get vaccinated, but you do, there's something definitely wrong with that picture.
You're right about that. Russianvids, I know that you've got to go somewhere else. I thank you very much for your time. And as you well know, I love you.
Thanks, Karen. I love you too. And everybody out there, especially in the UK, I have a tremendous amount of followers in the UK, and I appreciate you all, fantastic people, and we definitely need to unite. We're all individuals, but we need to unite, even though we might have our differences on a belief in a creator or not a creator or this or that. We just know one thing we'll agree on is these people that rule this world They're not forced, they're against us, and through manipulation with their state-run controlled media.
Yeah, so thank you very much for connecting with my channel, Russianvids.
My pleasure, Karen. Again, thanks so much. And of course, we'll be doing this again in the future.
Thank you, my darling. Russianvids, we'll say goodbye on here and we'll very quickly say goodbye to each other afterwards. But I'm just going to press the recording. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And I hope that, Russianvids resonates with you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Russianvids.
Thanks, Karen. Take care.
Chat room.